Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacey and Phil Thompson.
Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.
Hi, my name is Steve Lacey.
And my name is Phil Thompson. We welcome you. Thanks for joining us on our normally weekly podcast, although we didn't do one last week.
No, I was under the weather all week, and I guess so were you. So we gave it a valiant try to push it out to later the week, but yeah, it didn't happen.
We were two sickos. We were both sick and not doing well, but we're doing okay now. So that's the good news. So Steve Lacey and I work for a company called JSL Solutions, and we do mainly tech work, streaming video, mobile apps, as well as church management stuff, which is myflock.com. In fact, let me just give the products: streamingchurch.tv, which is streaming, churchapplive.com, which is mobile apps, and then it's your founding company that you started,
myflock.com, yes.
Which is started back in 2001.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Late 2001.
So, and my church was the second church to use it.
That's correct.
Back
this was
then.
5 years before Facebook was born. And
That's right.
Its whole key was social networking.
And we've made billions of dollars off it too.
Yes, if Facebook could only catch up with us.
Exactly. So we talk a lot about. We talk tech stuff. We talk about church leadership stuff because we both have involved in ministry and involved in our churches and all that good stuff. And we really have a heart for leaders and a heart for people involved in churches. But today we're going to go back to really more of the tech part of our Church Solutions podcast. What are we going to talk about today?
So today we're going to talk about encoders. We're going to do a little bit of an encoder review and give a little history of where streaming came from and what encoders do. And
so when I think of encoders, I think of James Bond, because didn't they have like encoders or something? Who was the guy that would give James all his tech gadgets?
Yeah, or some war person is an encoder or a decoder.
That's right. We just had actually a Native American just passed away. The last of the World War II encoders that did secret codes and all that.
He was from
decoder,
Arizona. Right? I assume,
decoder,
right? Yeah,
decoder. You're right.
You're figuring out the codes through the war and stuff.
Well, they used their native tongue. Apache,
okay. So he was an encoder.
Yeah.
Huh?
So you're right. Yeah. So
okay.
I'm confused here. So now that I've got everybody totally bored.
Yes, I do know what you're talking about, though.
Or confused. Yes. So we are talking about live encoders. So live encoders, that's what kind of makes the magic happen, so to speak, when it comes to streaming video or even audio. And so we're going to talk about live encoders. And there's actually several software-based encoders. There's even the box encoders out there, hardware.
Right. So I wanted to start, though, talking about a little bit of the history of streaming. I'm a tech geek, and I really get into this recent tech history because it's so recent. I mean, the things that my kids would say, oh, my gosh, I've had that forever. It's been there my whole life, has not been around too long. So, I mean, streaming, for example, streaming over the internet dates back to actually just before the World Wide Web browser was introduced. So got a fun fact here that the band called Severe Tire Damage was, they performed live on the internet on June 24th in 1993. And they were playing a gig at Xerox PARC, which fellow tech geeks would be very familiar with, the Palo Alto Research Center of Xerox, and they were broadcasting on the internet using something called multicasting, and they said that as proof that that this was really happening, the band could be seen live in Australia and other parts of the world. So this was the very first broadcast of streaming
video.
Yeah. So and actually, the Xerox PARC Center we have credited with the user interface that we have on our computers. The Ethernet cable, and actually the protocol wasn't developed by them. The HTTP that you hear for all the websites wasn't developed by them. But anyway, streaming goes way back. I know my first foray into streaming, we were just talking about a couple of weeks ago, which was just a few years after that. I figured out a means to hook up a camera and broadcast from my home before there were streaming providers.
I remember that. I remember being able to log on, and I think you had a shot of your living room or something. And
Yes.
occasionally, if you were really patient, you could see somebody walk by.
Yes, you talked about my kids running around the house in their underwear.
Yeah. And that was in, what was that, 95, 96, something like that?
That was, yeah, probably 95, 96, maybe 97 time frame. And I actually had a fellow engineer that I was working with get inspired as well. And he set one up, and he kept track of his dog while he was at work. So it was even more exciting. You could watch his dog sleep.
Watch his dog sleep.
Yeah. Okay. So this was way back when the familiar dial-up time. So the bandwidth wasn't there.
Right.
And the popular thing then was, I don't know if anybody remembers, was real networks. I don't know if you remember.
I do.
Being able to listen to some audio or even see some really archaic video over the real networks. And so they were a pioneer, and a lot of the technology that they developed was introduced through them. That is, Some of the things are still in place today. So getting to encoders. So what enables someone to take their video and stream it on the internet?
They have to have a live encoder.
They have to have a live encoder. So what does an encoder do? So the basics of an encoder, video takes a lot of data. So you got to transport that data. And so rather than take the raw video data and just stick it on the internet and move it across the web, the internet speeds were too slow and there's too much data to push, so you encode it. You compress all that data into a format that you can transmit over the web.
That's easier to do. Okay.
Yeah, so you can take a lot of data, encode it down or compress it down, and then transmit it and then receive it on the other end. So that's what an encoder does.
So to make that happen, you have to have some type of a live encoder. Okay. And so we're talking about audio and video.
Yes. Yeah. So over the years, things have evolved. There's been encoding formats that have come about. One of the more popular for audio is MP3, right. A way to compress audio and get audio, transportable and playback. In the video realm, H.264 has kind of taken root, and so there's some standards that have evolved. So all of the encoders that are out there adhere to those standards to take the data and encode it in that manner.
Interesting. Wow. So we're going to talk about that. So, and there are different types of encoders. There's software-based encoders that you can download on your computer.
Right.
And then there are what we would call hardware-based live encoders that are like boxes.
Yeah, boxes you can buy that, which typically what happens is they have encoder software running on the dedicated hardware box.
Right. Okay. But there's some little ones. I mean, there's some small ones as well as
some bigger ones as well. And so we have. I mean, as this technology kind of emerged, the dedicated hardware kind of, I think, took a big lead, especially with those with the bigger budgets and are able to do that. And so you buy these hardware-based encoders.
And there's pros and cons to both.
Yes, there are pros and cons to both. And so what we're going to talk about today is primarily the software-based encoders that are software packages that you can load on a computer.
Right. Okay. And what we're talking about when it comes to live encoders, probably going to do this in the next couple of weeks or so. Probably do part 2 next week and maybe part 3 next week. So,
yeah, we'll see how this goes, or maybe we'll whip through this in just a few minutes or not.
Okay.
We'll see here.
So software-based. So I take it you're going to start with the one of the more popular ones, which would be Flash Media Live Encoder.
Yes, Flash Media Live Encoder. So this is more popular mainly because it's free. Mm-hmm. Adobe was the one who developed the Flash Media Live Encoder, and they developed it. I don't know if I have a date on here. Do I have a date on this? let's see. I think it was.
Not sure when the 3.2 version is the current version, and that's, I think, the rumor is that that's the last version.
Yeah, that was,
But
I think, 2009. Actually, the
yeah,
printout I don't have quite. The page did not print on the bottom for me.
oh,
So I don't have all those pieces.
sorry.
That's okay.
That's
I'll
my
go off
printer.
of memory here.
My printer's screwed up again. Don't ever buy. Oh, never mind. We'll get off that. We'll talk about printers some other time.
Yeah. So anyway, the Flash Media Live Encoder was I don't know when it was developed, but it's owned by Adobe. The last version that they put out was the 3.2, and I think the date on that is 2009.
Yeah, it's January 12th.
Yeah, January 12th, 2009. So it is, and they started with, I'm sure, 1.0, 2.0. I don't know anything about those, but the 3.1 was kind of like Windows, became the kind of the standard one, and then they made an update in January 2009 to 3.2.
And as far as the platforms, I mean, it runs on Mac, iOS. It runs on Windows.
Right.
Does it run on any other? I mean, obviously those are the two most popular operating systems, but there's also your favorite Ubuntu or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Linux-based Ubuntu. No, it does not run on that.
Okay.
So,
we should talk about that sometime too. That'll be another topic.
Oh, Ubuntu
operating systems, yeah.
Yeah, operating systems. Yeah, I'm a big fan because I like pulling my hair out with Windows problems, so you can avoid all your Windows problems with.
Okay, Encoder. So anyhow, Flash, it is free. You can download it for free. Adobe Flash Media Live Encoder. It works off. You mentioned protocols when we were talking about HTTP. The protocol for this works off of which is RTMP. That's the protocol for Adobe Flash.
Yes. Now I'm pulling.
I
got it now. I just pulled it
up.
out.
All right. Okay.
So because my printout was blank, so
sorry.
Yeah.
So I won't get into it, but Epson printers suck. But anyhow, go ahead.
So anyway, the RTMP, and I can't remember exactly. I thought it was rumored that it was a Real Technologies protocol developed, but I think it was developed after that. Okay. So RTMP is the reason that Adobe's not going to move forward with it is Flash has kind of seen its day. I mean, Adobe came and kind of overtook everything that was going on. If you wanted to do multimedia, if you wanted to do things beyond just text and images, you had to have Flash. And so this video protocol was based on Flash. Now we've got HTML5 coming out, and so the ability to do video and some other things are getting away from the Flash-based. Or everyone is getting away from Flash.
And then wasn't there this war going on between Apple and
Flash
or something?
Yeah. So Apple which is ironic because those that have been around an ancient like me and an old Apple and Mac guy, Adobe got their start by creating PostScript for printers for Apple. Oh. And so they were partnered with Apple. Apple had a really good printer at the time.
Maybe I should get it.
That was they don't do printers anymore. It's been a long time. But anyway, Adobe was a company that basically developed PostScript technology, and they partnered. They were completely in bed with Apple. And now it's interesting that, I don't know, 10 years later, which is not 10, 15 years later, 20 years later, they don't get along anymore. And so Apple has been banning Flash on all of their devices, and it's still tolerated on the Mac, but everything else it's kind of going away.
So that sounds like typical marriage. They loved each other for a while, and then now they hate each other. So we're going to go off track here, but I need to say this because I still get this question occasionally, and that is, well, if Flash is going away, and you guys being us that provide streaming services, streamingchurch.tv, our player is a Flash-based player,
right?
So how does that work for somebody that's got
our player does support HTML5 as well.
Right. Well, so I know that. I know the answer, but I want you to explain it because I still get that question occasionally. Well, if it's flash, then that means
and the flash is going away.
Right.
Well, on the web, the richest experience for the player right now is still through the Flash player. So we're using a player that will, if you've got Flash, we'll play the Flash because it's got the richest feature set.
Okay.
If you don't have Flash, then it downgrades itself to a lesser. And video still works, but there's some of the things that you might not have the capability to do that you have today. So they may eventually go away, or what will probably happen is the technologies that's coming up behind it, the HTML5 video stuff, will get mature enough to catch up with where the Flash-based stuff is.
Right. Yeah.
So we were going to go through this thing. We're going to talk about pros and cons of
Sure.
Flash Media Live Encoder.
Yeah.
So basically, we've kind of set the stage for what it is. It is free. It's available on our website, or you can go through Adobe. What Adobe is going to do is require you to create an account and have you jump through a few hoops to download the Flash Media Live Encoder. We've got a direct download on our site.
So if they just go to streamingchurch.tv.
Yes,
and
there's
Can My Church Do This?
Yeah, the page is Can My Church Do This? We've got a link to both the Windows version and the Mac version there.
Okay.
So, so you can download that and install that on your computer. It's going to run on just about anything. The latest development of this thing was 2009, so there's probably not a lot of 10-year-old computers out there. They're all probably newer than that, so shouldn't have any problem running the Flash Media Live Encoder. All right, so why would we want to use Flash Media Live Encoder?
Well, besides it's the fact that it's free and it doesn't seem to take a lot of resources. It takes some resources. It doesn't take too many resources. It still has a lot of nice features.
Yeah, it does have a lot of nice features. Not as feature rich as some of the other encoders, but it's got some. Yeah,
Okay.
So one of the things that's nice. Well, number one, it's free.
Mm-hmm.
The other, another really nice, and it's multiple platform. That is also a real big advantage because we've got, especially in the worship area, a lot of the media area departments a lot of them are running Macs a lot more than the general population.
Right.
So having something that's free that's available on the Mac, and it's reliable, it works, it's not buggy, it doesn't crash, it's very, it's mature. So
yeah, it very seldom does it crash. I mean, occasionally, but very seldom. Usually when you're running, I can say this from experience, is usually if it does crash, it's because you're trying to run video through some kind of a video capture device that is just a piece of junk. And so then the Flash Media Live Encoder and your computer are fighting to try to keep this thing to work, trying to get it to work.
Right.
So that's why we always push FireWire. And again, that's kind of older technology too.
Right.
But it works very well for streaming video. FireWire works really good for streaming video.
Right.
You can use other things, obviously, but the problems I've seen with Flash Media Live Encoder is when people try to use these USB devices and they're running their composite or their S-video through a USB device, and which again is kind of archaic. It can work, and it can work okay, but we don't recommend it.
Yeah, and it also reminds me when we have people that have issues and things are just starting to behave strange, and we're kind of scratching our head on the phone with them. And a lot of times just quitting and restarting the Flash Media Live Encoder fixes the problems.
Yeah, solves the problem. It's like everything we say, just unplug it, plug it back in.
Yes, like your post you had on Facebook. I like that. What did it say?
Well, if I'm ever on life support, just unplug me and then plug me back in.
See if that works.
See if that fixes it. Fixes me. Yeah, somebody will probably do that. So Flash, even though it's free, it's still a pretty good little deal. You can do a lot of little things. You can do multiple. You can stream multiple bandwidth, multiple streams. I should say.
Yeah, so you send it multiple streams. So why would you want to send multiple streams? You kind of hinted at it. You can send up multiple bitrate streams.
Multiple bitrate streams. So you can do that for a couple reasons. One is, and really we've upgraded our stuff to do this. There's a thing out there called adaptive bitrate. And we're going to get off track here, but we'll cover it very quickly.
It's a good detour.
Yeah, and that is to do. So if you today with HD, and we'll need to get into this when it comes to Flash Media Live Encoder too, but if you want to do a really high quality stream, the problem in the past has been if you want to do a really high quality HD kind of like stream, and if you've got the hardware and you've got the internet bandwidth at your location, you can pull it off. However, other people, different parts of the country, of the world, if their local networks are kind of weak, there's going to be a problem sometimes. They're going to choke on the bandwidth.
Or the more common thing is someone's on a phone and on a
Right.
3G connection.
Which is what, and even 4G is not that great. I mean, it's good, but it's, we won't get into, another thing we'll get sidetracked on. But so, if in the past, if you tried to really stream a really high quality signal, people on mobile devices or weak networks would have problems. They'd have buffering, receiving it. They'd drop it and all that. And so what we always suggested in the past was send 3 different streams up, or 2, and then give people put on your platform, your streaming platform where the player is and the chat and all those things, give them an option to click on a lower bandwidth. And then the picture may not be as good, but they won't have any issues with buffering. Okay.
Right.
And you could still do that. But also now today, you can do what's called adaptive bitrate, and that is you can send 3 streams up, and we can set it up on our servers and help you through the process where it will automatically detect your device, what bandwidth is going to work for your device, and it will, I believe, continue to do so throughout the stream.
Right.
So it will set up where you no longer have to give people an option. Their device and our servers will work together and figure out what the best quality of stream will be for them.
Right.
And so it really minimizes the buffering and the dropping.
And that's another feature of this Flash-based front end of this player. It will help with that process as well.
And so with Flash Media Live Encoder, you can do that. You can do that. You can do either one. You can just put separate links up. People can manually click it. Although really there's no need to do that now because they can still manually click it on the player automatically. So you don't have to put up the links anymore.
Right. So it gets a little simpler and so it's but in order to do this, you've got to send up 3 different streams so that the viewer can switch between the streams. So you've got to
either manually or automatically.
Right.
So again, if we're losing people on this, support at streamingchurch.tv. Well, you're listening to this driving down the road or whatever it might be on your podcast. So support at streamingchurch.tv. We'll definitely answer questions or help you.
So you can send up multiple streams with Flash Media Live Encoder. Mm-hmm. Next on our list was auto adjust.
It will do auto adjust. Now, you can't. Here's the catch, and I think this is probably true on every encoder. If you're going to do multiple streams, it's not going to work. Auto adjust. But if you're just doing one stream, you can click auto adjust. It has its own little feature, and so at your location where you're uploading from, if your bandwidth begins to shrink where you're at when you're streaming, so you're uploading to our servers, the auto adjust will make some auto adjustments.
It'll go and it'll drop down bandwidth and say, I'm not able to stream at 500 kilobytes. Let's try at 200.
Right. Yeah.
And it'll say, okay, now I've got 200 working, and then it'll slowly go back and say, okay, let's try 300. 400. Okay, now 500 is working again.
So that feature is available on Flash Media Live Encoder. I was testing something Saturday, something we're working on, and I was streaming here, kind of like what you said you did 20 years ago, and that is I just turned on the camera and just walked around and let it stream. And I noticed it on my Flash Media Live Encoder. Something happened here. My bandwidth began to shrink here at my office, and it began to make auto adjusting. And I watched my iPhone, and it never missed a beat.
Right.
Did really well.
Yeah. Quality just kind of changes in the background. And there's really not.
And on an iPhone or a small mobile device, you don't notice the quality.
The only area you're going to really notice the quality is if you go full screen with some of the video. I don't think you can really tell with a normal size screen. So
Flash has got that. We got about 5 minutes left here.
We got to really hustle then. Okay. So auto adjust. There's a bunch of different video and audio format options.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So
works well.
Yeah, H.264 and MP3. The iPhone and the iOS devices like or prefer AAC.
Yeah, but, and it's got to be H.264. There's VP6 as another format, but that is not good for iOS devices.
Right.
So you don't want to have H.264, MP3, or AAC, as you said.
Right. So on the pros side here, we got these items. One more is you can stream and record simultaneously.
Yeah, you can record.
So Flash
capture.
Media Library Encoder lets you stream it and record it. So those are some of the good things that you get with Flash Media Library Encoder.
Yeah.
So what are some of the cons?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, the last update, I guess, was 2009?
2009, yes.
Wow. So it's going away eventually.
Yes. I mean, it's I don't know if it's going away, but it's no longer supported. So there won't be any updates. Yeah. It'll probably be available for a long time, but other things will overcome it that are out there. So it's at the end of life, and there aren't any upgrade plans with it.
Right.
Some of the other cons here is while it does have a lot of features, it is fairly basic compared to some of the higher end encoders that are out there.
You need to have a switcher in front of it.
Yes, if you want to
from it.
Right, if you want to switch video, you're going to need a video switcher upstream to it.
Yeah, you can't. So in other words, you have one camera, one shot, and that's it.
Yep.
And if you want 2 or 3 cameras, you're going to have to put some kind of a switcher in front of it.
Right. It will give you a preview, but that preview is just going to be one camera input prior to going live. So you can see and you can also, on the pro side, you can push your preview out, live when you see the preview. Yeah. So
no overlays.
No overlays. Overlays are things like lower thirds that allow you to put in, the pastor's name and graphics and that sort of thing. Okay. And then your favorite topic is the next bullet on here.
Yeah, HD. It's not very HD video friendly. Now, we do have some customers that are doing it for HD, and they're fine. But I think the problem comes in with the way it's processed before it gets there, the hardware you're using to get it there. There's video capture devices that we push, but there's also video capture cards, things like Blackmagic and those things. We have at least 1 or 2 customers that say it works great for them. Normally what happens is when you're trying to do high definition video with it, there's video and audio gets out of sync. And that's if things are going well, it gets out of sync. If things are going bad, sometimes it won't even work. And you can adjust that as well. You can make adjustments to the audio video sync. You can do that. But it's with HD, it tends to be a uphill battle.
And it's kind of indicative of this is 2009, the last update, and so there's been a lot of advances in video cards, and so it has not kept up. So it's not. It tends to have.
It struggles.
It struggles.
Right. Although again, by the way, if you're listening and you're doing HD with it, contact us. I'd like to hear what your setup is. Just for information, support at streamingchurch.tv. So and you've got here, it can only record while you're streaming. So you can't just do a record only. You're going to have to stream. I didn't know that.
Well, what I wanted to point out there was with the other encoders, you can say, I want to start streaming. And then 20 minutes later, I want to start recording.
Oh, okay.
And I want to stop recording. So with the Flash Media Live Encoder, when you start streaming, it starts recording.
Okay, you got to do it all at once.
Yeah, so when you stop streaming, it stops recording. So that's kind of it's kind of a hassle. Yeah. So because you're going to want to start broadcasting your services prior to your services going, starting.
Right.
But you have the video recording, then you're going to have to go pull it into an editor and.
And you're going to have to do all that. Now, we do have a DVR feature on our admin control panel. And not to be confused with the DVR feature that's on the Adobe Flash Media Live Encoder. There's actually a DVR feature. That's a whole nother setup. And we won't even get into that. Okay. There is a setup, but it's totally different.
Oh, okay.
But we do have what we call the DVR feature that you've worked so hard on that people can actually, while they're streaming, they could stop and start recording through the on-demand servers. So if you're interested in our DVR feature, let us know.
Right.
Running out of time here, quickly.
Yeah, quickly. So the other one is you can't set the bit rates for your streaming and your recording to be separate. So they're going to be very similar. So with other encoders, you're going to be able to say, I want a really high quality local copy, and then I want to stream, what people can view separately, so you can set those.
So if you're streaming at more of a standard definition bit rate, streaming live with that standard definition, you can't upgrade that to your recorded. You can't stream at a higher
Right.
or recorded at a higher bit rate.
Right.
So the quality is going to be what you see is what you get, kind of a thing.
Right.
Where Wirecast or some other ones have a difference there. Okay.
And the other one we mentioned is AAC is not available. So that's kind of, I mean, there's definitely pros. There's definitely some cons. It's going to depend on what's right for you.
Right.
But it's a great entry-level product that gets you exposed to it and gets you rolling. And it is robust, but it doesn't have all the features, and it doesn't work with all the equipment.
Yeah, and we would still recommend it, especially if you're just starting out and you're really on a tight budget. You definitely can do it, and there's some ways around it. So we're out of time, Steve.
All right.
But appreciate you putting this stuff together. Next week we will talk probably about Wirecast, right?
Yes, another encoder. And we'll kind of go through a similar format with pros and cons.
And there's some other ones out there too. Hey, if you've got something to add to this podcast with Encoders, let us know. Support@streamingchurch.tv. We'd love to hear from you. So we are out of time. And catch us, review us on iTunes. Look for Church Solutions Podcast on iTunes. We're on YouTube. Look for Phil Thompson Live for your YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
That's where it's at. And we're on other places, newmediaministries.tv, newmediaministries.tv. We're there as well. So, all right, we're out of here. Folks, have yourself a great day. We appreciate you listening. We will catch you next time on another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. Take care.